began to shape us. Stories whispered through bloodlines, etched into memories that we've never lived, but somehow carry. I am one such story. An impression of my mother, my father, my grandmothers and grandfathers, and all of those who came before. Earlier this year, I was standing on Native American reservation land near Gallup, New Mexico, looking at the abandoned house where my maternal grandmother spent her childhood. When I laid my hand on what was left of the hearth, the sandstone, cool to the touch, even under the summer sun, I could sense the lives of those that once lived. The loss, the hardships, the joy, the revelry, their stories still lingering in the stone. I felt as if the past wasn't behind me, but it was beneath me, all around me. A reminder that we are just threads in a much larger tapestry of human experience. When I was a young child, I found a postcard in my mother's drawer. On it, there was a photograph of a religious festival in India. It had been taken from above, and the people looked like tiny specks in a sea of color. In the center, there was a quote: "We are not human beings on a spiritual journey. We are spiritual beings on a human journey." This idea of the spiritual journey hidden inside the human one stayed with me. Perhaps in that moment I was born a cultural anthropologist, for I would spend the rest of my life collecting stories and seeking to better understand the diversity of the human experience. This quest has taken me across continents, into thousands of conversations, and into the heart of what makes us, all of us, who we are. And I believe deeply that we are shaped by the stories we tell, the ones we inherit, and the ones we hear along the way. Today, I'd like to share with you the stories of two women who could not be more different, but each of them left a mark that changed the course of my own story. The first woman was born into a deeply conservative religious community. From a young age, she was taught that her purpose was to care for others, her siblings, neighbors, her future children, like her mother, who had married at the age of 15. One of her early memories is around the age of 9, just after her baptism. She was asked to speak, to give religious testimony in front of all of the church elders. They had asked her to imagine her future and to share what gift she would bring to the community. She brought a poster with pictures of women politicians on it, wanting to share her aspirations to become the first woman president. That morning, before she could reach the front of the room, she was hastily pulled aside and told that she should be ashamed for imagining anything more purposeful than motherhood. She was curious, she was independent, but she learned quickly that her voice had no place in the world around her. At school, she struggled with a learning disability. At home, she felt isolated. In high school, she struggled so much that eventually she turned to alcohol. Most nights, most weekends, she would spend drinking until she blacked out. Her first job outside of babysitting was at a community college campus when she was 16. Within 3 months, her boss had begun sexually assaulting her, and it escalated until a point that she had to quit. Her parents' divorce later that same year made her family home an unwelcome place to be, and she turned inward. Self-harm, relationships with men twice her age, stealing from family and friends, and hiding, until it caught up with her. She found a large lump in her chest and required surgery. At this point, she was living below the poverty line and couldn't afford the procedure. She had to seek government assistance to pay the bill. She was 19 years old. That moment, lying alone in the hospital bed, was a turning point. At the age of 20, with just a suitcase, a little bit of money saved, she bought a flight ticket to Melbourne, Australia. She knew no one there, stayed in a hostel, got a temp job through a government agency. Within 6 months, she was then offered a full-time position, and later went on to build a life for herself, taking each day as it came. I remember her saying to me once, "I feel so grateful because every day that goes by is a little bit better than the day before." Her story is one of radical, quiet courage. Against all odds, she was able to write a different story, one that felt more like her own. The other woman that left a meaningful impression on me had a very different life. Teachers said that she was gifted as a child. Her parents nurtured her curiosity. One of her earliest memories is sitting on the floor of her room and unfolding the maps that she would collect from National Geographic magazines. Every month she would wait excitedly, spend hours gazing at those maps before hoarding them and putting them in a bottom drawer in her room. She spent her weekends at the lake, boating, jet skiing. She spent summer vacations at the beach. She enjoyed flying lessons, sitting next to her father in the cockpit, her father who owned 2 private airplanes. One of her fondest memories is just after delivering her commencement speech as valedictorian at her 8th grade graduation. She walked off the stage, the applause booming, where she was embraced by her mother, with full of warmth and full of pride. By the time she was 16, she had graduated high school a year early, with honors and full scholarships. She went on to later found a youth-run volunteer organization in her neighborhood. She was invited by Oprah Winfrey's Angel Network to travel abroad and to build schools in underprivileged areas. She went to Kenya, she went to Cambodia, India, and Thailand. By her mid-20s, she had self-published a children's book and launched her own successful business, following in her father's footsteps, who himself was a successful business owner, making meaning of her privilege. Having lived and worked on 3 continents and experiencing all of the richness that the world has to offer, I remember her saying to me once, "Even if my time here on earth is over tomorrow, I wouldn't be mad at God, because I've lived so many lives." What I found striking was that her extraordinary achievements felt ordinary to her. Her story is one of knowing what was possible and running toward it with open arms. 2 very different stories, one of survival and one of abundance. Yet both stories shaped me deeply, changing the course of my own life. One of the most profound moments of my life is one that I share with my mother. I spent the last 6 weeks of her life by her side, caring for her as she faced the final stages of breast cancer. She told me that her greatest regret was that she wouldn't get to meet her unborn grandchildren. She asked me to write her story, a picture book that her grandchildren could read to know a little bit about who she was. So I began to interview her about her past and what she wanted to be remembered for. One afternoon, we were sitting on the couch and we started arguing about some detail from a family vacation. And I laughed and I said, "But Mom, the past is just a story we tell ourselves," echoing a line I heard once in a film. And she turned to me and she said, "But so is the present." In that moment, something shifted. I began to wonder, how much of who we are today is shaped by what we choose to remember from the past? And what if we could choose differently? I have a confession to make. Those 2 women and the 2 stories that I told you, they are not different people, nor are they people I met. Both stories are true, every detail, and both stories are mine. I was the girl on stage. I was also the girl in the hospital bed. For much of my human journey, I lived a double life. Many of us carry stories like these, multiple versions of ourselves, some buried, some proud, some healing, and some still aching. But I believe the past isn't fixed, it's fluid, rewritten in every breath, a kind of death and rebirth, moment to moment, depending on what story we choose to tell. So I ask you, when you narrate the past, what story are you telling? And how is it affecting your present? What if we could share ourselves and all of our stories more fully, more entirely? The messy, beautiful, complicated stories. What if we believed that we were worthy, not despite them, but because of them? What if we stopped editing ourselves to not only share the things that sound good or look impressive? What might our relationships be like if we dared to be seen more entirely? The next time you introduce yourself or meet someone new, pause. Instead of just narrating your most prized accomplishments or most polished accomplishments, think, is there some truth that I could share that would make this connection more real? You don't have to share everything, just something real, something whole. And finally, if there's a part of your story that still hurts, maybe one that dims your present or derails your future, what if you gave yourself permission to think about it differently? To not erase it, but to consider what else it might mean. Because when we imagine boldly, we begin to reshape not just the stories that we carry, but the lives that we are capable of living. Here's my invitation. In the next 24 hours, take 5 quiet minutes. Sit with yourself and a story from your past. Ask, who gave me this story? Is it still true? Who might I become if I let it evolve into something new? Because a new story, once imagined, begins to take shape. It creates a new impression, not just on us, but on all of those who follow. I look at my daughter, and I see a reflection of her mother, a reflection of her father, of her grandmothers and her grandfathers, the stories that she's inherited. I also see her writing her own. What will she choose to say? That is the power of story. That is the gift of being human. You are the author. The stories are yours, and there are many versions. Embrace them all and dare to imagine the next one. Thank you.